The next day, Sarah went straight to Nina's after work. She rang the doorbell for a long time, but no one answered. The neighbor informed her that Nina had moved away. Sarah knew that the matter was not as simple as Nina had made it look. On the weekend, Roman got busy with his parents moving into their farmhouse. Fearing that Daisy would be lonely at home alone, he called Sarah to keep her company. Sarah thought about going out with her somewhere in the city. So she asked her, "Wherever you want to go, just say it, and we can leave as soon as possible." Daisy then became excited and said, "How about we go to the city carnival?" Sarah didn't expect her to say this and said, "Now that you sound so excited, let's go to the carnival." God knows she went to the carnival when she was still in elementary school, but she couldn't say no to Daisy. She helped Daisy choose an outfit and went on with her to the fair. As they were on the sidewalk, a car stopped by them, and the window rolled down, revealing John's eager face. "Where are you two gals heading?" "Hello to you, John," Sarah said with a smile. "Why are you roaming around on the weekend without your fiancé?" John smiled and looked at Daisy. "Daisy, where is your boyfriend? Why did you leave you to this careless secretary?" "Hey, that's mean, John," Sarah said. "Weren't you the one being an uptight prick and throwing fits about not having a secretary a few days ago, as far as I can remember? Okay, I am not talking to you. Tell me, where are you going? I'll drop you guys off." "We are headed to the carnival, John," Daisy said, not being able to contain her excitement. "That's a bit far. Get in the car. Let me escort you ladies to your adventures," John said. Daisy smiled at his antics and took his offer, leading herself and Sarah to sit in his car. John took them to the carnival, but did not leave. Instead, he thought about joining them and making up most of his holiday. Sarah was surprised to see him come in with them and said, "John, are you free today?" "Not really, but I don't have anything urgent. Also, I cannot let you both go all alone. I am not sure if you will be able to take care of her and yourself all on your own. Trust me, you don't want to be on the receiving end of Roman's wrath if something happens to little Miss Daisy here," John said, "so I have to keep an eye on it. You can thank me later by finding me another secretary." "Thank you very much for this generosity, John," Sarah said sarcastically and turned to Daisy. "He is our bodyguard for today. Doesn't it feel very safe now, Daisy?" Daisy looked John up and down and said, "Can he even fight?" Daisy expressed her doubts about John's capabilities. Although John was tall and big, he was way too soft to pick up a fight with someone. John didn't get what they were getting onto and said, "Why will I fight?" Daisy said. "Roman's very good at fighting." "It's very obvious given his build," Sarah said with a smile, "but I didn't realize that he was also level-headed." "Is he, though?" Daisy immediately asked Sarah. "Of course, the boss is praised for being mature and stable for a reason." John couldn't take being sidelined anymore and said, "Can you not involve Roman in everything?" He changed the topic, pointed to the vast setup not too far away, and asked Daisy, "What do you want to do first?" Sarah immediately said, "John, please go on the rides with Daisy. I can't get on them, I feel dizzy." John glanced at Daisy worriedly and explained to her, "This roller coaster ride is a bit scary to get on, aren't you afraid?" Daisy instead beamed with joy and dragged him to the ride. Sarah went to buy them tickets, and John made sure Daisy had put on the safety belt properly. She was sitting in the chair saying that it would be more fun if they also went on the pirate ship ride after. John thought to himself, "It's fun right now. Let's see what you will think after being scared to death after finishing the ride." After the seat belts were fastened, the ride started to move slowly. John observed Daisy, but he couldn't see the pale face and trembling lips. Daisy instead waved excitedly at Sarah below. Daisy didn't want John to take care of her at all. Seeing her look so full of wonder, John was a little stunned. Sarah stood near the ride, worrying for both of them. John was in his world when Daisy looked at the merry-go-round horse on the right and said, "John, isn't that Nina?" When John heard it, he looked in that direction. The merry-go-round was full of children. How could there be Nina? He said, "Daisy, are you okay? There is no Nina over there. You must be getting dizzy. Look, it's her over there, I am sure of it." Daisy pointed again. John looked over, and there was indeed an adult sitting on the wooden horse with a ponytail and a loose pullover. The person did look a bit like Nina, but he wasn't sure since the ride sped up and he lost that person in that crowd again. Besides, Nina had already left the city. Why would she be here? It must be someone else, John said. Nina has already left. It can't be her. Really? Daisy turned around suspiciously, but the wooden horse had already stopped and the girl with the ponytail had disappeared. After the roller coaster, Daisy wanted to get on the Ferris wheel. John started to feel dizzy when he looked at it from the bottom. It was very high. The height was quite difficult for him. Seeing Daisy's eagerness to try, Sarah said, "John, can you just sit with her on that as well? You are okay, right?" John didn't want to lose face in front of the two girls, so instead of saying that he was afraid of heights, he said that it would be too much for Daisy. The two of them saw through him right away. Before Sarah had time to correct him, Daisy said, "Why will I be scared when you are there to protect us? Am I wrong?" Being provoked by a girl, John stubbornly said, "I'm afraid you'll start crying and Roman will take it out on me for not taking good care of you." "No," Daisy said. "I can handle the ride." Sarah patted John on the shoulder and said, "John, for the sake of my boss, please take her on the ride." Then she ran to buy a ticket. They sat on it, and the first time they rushed up, Daisy felt her hands were about to fall off from John's vice grip. Even though Daisy was in pain, seeing how panicked John was, she had no choice but to endure it. "Don't worry, it will be over in a while. We have slowed down. You can open your eyes now, John. Don't be nervous. Just open your eyes and take a look. It's beautiful from up here." John couldn't feel anything beyond how scared he was. "John, it's already stopped. Open your eyes and maybe let go of my hand." It wasn't until the staff undid the security that John opened his eyes. He looked at Daisy blankly, then at the ground. He was stepping on. He then stood up, staggered, and fell forward, but luckily the staff had caught him. "Sir, you look very pale. Let me help you to that bench." John didn't even have the strength to speak and let the staff take him to the bench. Sarah came over and asked him, "John, are you okay?" John gave her an angry look, thinking, did he look okay? Why did she still need to ask such a silly thing? John shook his head. "I am fine, just a little sweating." Daisy said seriously, "You didn't have to do this if you were not feeling up to it. It's okay, just take a rest and I'll buy you a bottle of water." Sarah said to John, "Relax, John." The two of you sat together. Daisy was alive and kicking. "Why are you so scared?" "What about being brave and protecting us?" John said angrily. "I'm scared of heights, is that enough? Then why didn't you say it before?" Sarah blamed him instead. "I'm not responsible for what goes wrong if you don't tell me." John didn't want to talk anymore. It was all his fault anyway. He took the water Daisy brought for him and rested for a while. Daisy's phone rang and she picked it up, knowing it was Roman. Daisy said to Roman with a sweet smile, "Hey there, I have come to this city fair with Sarah and John. We are having so much fun." Roman suddenly became displeased. "Why is John with you?" Daisy told him about running into John while waiting for the bus downstairs. Only then did Roman ease his tone and said, "I should have told Matt to drop you guys off. Why didn't I think that before? It's okay. John is such fun. He accompanied me on all the rides. He's not feeling well right now, so he's sitting here resting." Roman knew that John had a fear of heights and said, "Let him ride with you later on the pirate ship. That would be fun." "No, he is afraid of heights. His face is so pale right now. He won't die by getting on one ride. He will be able to overcome his fear. Can we do that?" Daisy was a little uncertain. "Yes, you can." Daisy was still hesitating when she suddenly heard a woman's voice on the phone. "Roman, Aunt Victoria is asking for you." Roman didn't answer her but said to Daisy, "Go and have fun. I still have some things to do." Daisy didn't reply and hung up. She had never heard Caroline's voice on the phone, but she knew that it was her. And last time Caroline also said that she would go to the farmhouse with Roman. It wasn't until Sarah called her over there that Daisy walked over. Seeing her unhappy look, Sarah said, "What's the matter? What did the boss say on the phone?" John snorted. "I am pretty sure he is jealous to know that I am with you here. Roman must be scared that his girl would be swooning over me. The two were chatting happily, but Daisy next to him seemed lost in her thoughts as she looked at the crowd in the fair. Sarah glanced at her, feeling something was wrong. She bumped John with her arm and made him look at her. John then said, "Daisy, why do you look so upset? You were fine just now. Are you tired?" Daisy shook her head and said, "I'm fine." John asked again, "What else do you want to do? I am ready now." Daisy looked at him and blinked. "Will you still go on the ride with me? Are you not scared anymore?" "Don't think too much." "So what else do you want to do?" Daisy asked him in a meek tone. "I want to ride the roller coaster. Is that okay?" Sarah covered her mouth hilariously. "Roller coaster it is then." The roller coaster was indeed thrilling. Daisy laughed and screamed, trying hard to suppress the emotions in her heart. She held on to John tightly and let it all in. The weekend arrived, and as decided, Roman, Caroline, Victoria, and George traveled to the farmhouse. It was proving more difficult for Roman than he had anticipated. Victoria didn't give him a moment's peace. She constantly bugged him to spend every single minute of his day bonding with Caroline. Whenever Victoria noticed Roman not giving Caroline enough attention, she exploded on him. George had to persuade her to let it slide, or else she would have not given up. She liked Caroline, although Roman had made it clear that he had no interest in her romantically. She still had some hope, and she thought spending time with each other, away from work, was indeed a very good idea for them. Victoria forced Roman to take Caroline and show her around the estate. When Caroline heard this, she quickly shook her head. "No need, I'll just have a look myself." "Roman must be very busy. He doesn't need to do that. It's not like I would get lost or something." "I am not sure about that," Victoria said with a smile. "This estate is like a maze. Sometimes I get confused myself." George also said, "That's right, Roman. Caroline is a guest, and it's her first time here. You can show her around." "For hospitality's sake," Roman smiled and said to Caroline, "Very well then. Caroline, let me give you a tour." Seeing what he offered, Caroline could only smile and follow him. Sitting on the mahogany sofa, Victoria looked at Roman and Caroline walking out side by side and couldn't stop the smile on her face. George laughed and said, "You can never give up, can you?" Victoria said, "They make such a good pair. I don't know what made Roman reject her. At first they agreed to go out with each other, but now they seem to have changed their minds. Where will I find such a good girl again? She is well educated and sensible. I'm so worried for him." "Stop thinking about it," George said. "Roman will come around sooner or later. Our son is just 24. I feel guilty that we have to keep forcing marriage on him, as if he hadn't already given up his youth for the family business. But then there is also old age. If I don't hurry up, I will never live to see my grandchildren." Victoria sighed again as she spoke. Caroline followed Roman all the way and found that the place was indeed like a maze, just as Victoria said. There were doors everywhere and all the porches looked the same, extending in all directions. "You could easily get lost." Caroline said to Roman, "I didn't expect your house to be such a wonder." Roman said with a wry smile, "It was my father's creation. He designed everything. It's a pity that he isn't even well enough to take a walk around. Why don't I ask my family if they can pull up some strings and look for some kind of treatment?" "No need," Roman said. "I'm just saying you don't have to worry about it." Caroline nodded and continued to follow him. Roman pushed open a wooden door. "This is the place used to hold parties and formal events." "Speaking of parties," Caroline continued, "I saw Daisy at my family friend's birthday party last time." "Really?" Roman's tone was light, not wanting to continue on the topic. Caroline didn't seem to notice it and said, "At first I didn't recognize her. I didn't expect her to be there, so dressed up. She is still a beauty, though." Roman hummed, "She's fine. I also met her boyfriend. He seemed nice, good-looking and talented. The two of them looked good together." Roman raised the corner of his mouth, showing a faint smile. "Do you think they are a good match?" Caroline smiled and said, "Not only me, but their classmates also think so. I heard from Emily that they haven't been together for a long time, but they often hang out together on campus." "Really?" Roman said flatly. "Maybe I should talk to her and tell her to focus more on her studies." Caroline pretended to be surprised. Why, didn't you know about them? I thought she must have told you. Why would she tell me such a thing? Roman stepped on a small stone by the side of the road and said, If you hadn't told me, I would have never known. Caroline said, Then maybe I shouldn't have said it. After all, it's her private life. It's okay. I still want to thank you for telling me this, Roman said, pointing to a door in front and said, This is the back door. Behind the door, we have a gazebo, planted some trees, and the scenery is not bad. Do you want to go up for a walk? Caroline said, You don't need to accompany me anymore. I will take a walk by myself. It's still early for dinner. Roman nodded, then turned to leave. Caroline looked at his back. A smile appeared on the corner of her mouth, very gentle and demure. Roman was sitting in the corridor smoking a cigarette as he stared blankly at the pattern on the wall. His heart felt like a mess and he couldn't make up his mind. Throwing away the cigarette butt, he sat silently for a while before getting up and going into the hall. George was sitting on the rocking chair with his eyes closed. Seeing him coming back alone, Victoria asked, Where's Caroline? She went up for a stroll. Roman sat down and said, She'll be back in time for dinner. Victoria said, How can you let her go alone? She is our guest. You should have stayed with her. Can you take a break, Mom? Nothing will happen to her. Roman lowered his head and sat there, ignoring his mother. Victoria glared at her son, then looked at George, who was still resting. She shook her head and let it go. Caroline still didn't come back till dinner. Victoria blamed Roman. What did I say? Go and bring her back. I hope nothing happened to her. Roman also found it strange, so he went to look for her. He walked halfway up the road only to see Caroline sitting on the ground with an upset face. What's the matter? Roman asked. I sprained my ankle. Caroline pointed to her foot and said, I wasn't careful of the rocks and tripped on one. Roman smiled and said, Why were you in a hurry? We would have waited for you to come back. Seeing him tease her, Caroline was taken aback and said with a smile, Please give me a hand. I can't even stand up. Roman squatted in front of her and said, Come on, I'll carry you. That's embarrassing. I can still walk with one foot. Caroline seemed unsure. Roman looked back at her. When did you become so shy? Caroline said. Fine. Thank you for the help, Mr. Spencer. Roman said, If I knew something would happen to you, I should have come with you. It's not your fault, Caroline said. Roman silently carried her back to the house. Neither of them spoke. Only the rustling of fallen leaves was heard on the quiet road. Caroline's long hair fluttered in the wind and fell on Roman's face. She hurriedly brushed it away with her hands. As her fingers slid across the man's face, Caroline's heart skipped a beat. When they returned to the hall, Victoria saw that Caroline sprained her foot and couldn't help but blame Roman. Look, I told you not to leave her alone. Please don't blame Roman. It's my fault. I was not careful. Victoria turned her head, saw Roman sitting on the sofa and said, Don't go anywhere in the afternoon, just stay here with her. Roman said, Mom, I have some work. You stay with her. I want to be with your father and maybe get some rest. Besides, I am sure you guys will have a good time catching up with each other, Victoria said, leaving them alone. Roman had planned to leave after dinner. Daisy was all on her own, but now that Caroline had sprained her foot, he had to attend to her. The two looked at each other, smiled, and started to talk about their work and the projects they were working on. Victoria came out of the room and looked at them from a distance. She turned around and went to her room happily and said to George, It seems that I am right after all. Maybe all they need is to spend some time alone. George said to her, Didn't Roman already say that he and Caroline have no relationship? Go out and have a look. Are they not getting along? Victoria smiled. The sun shifted inch by inch. Roman suddenly glanced at the clock on the side and said with some surprise, It's so late. You are tired too. Take a rest. I will be out for some time. Caroline retired to bed. Roman walked out of the hall and went to his room. He sat down on the couch and took out his phone to look through it. There was not a single text message. He threw the phone to his side and sighed. Caroline's words made him have doubts again. Daisy had mentioned Ethan to him, even about giving him a handkerchief. When she said it, He could tell that she was honest. The girl would never lie to him, but why did Caroline say that? Does everyone know? Or is there some misunderstanding here? While staring at the ceiling in a daze, the phone rang. He sat up lazily and reached out to pick up the phone. It was Daisy asking when he was going to come back. Roman sensed her restlessness and asked her in a warm voice, "What's the matter?" Daisy sighed lightly. "Roman, you have to come back early." When Roman returned to the city, he called Daisy. There was deafening music on the other end of the phone. Daisy shouted happily, "Are you back? We are out at the club." Roman frowned slightly. "Where are you?" Daisy said. "At Club 11. Roman knew that place was John's old den. He turned around at the intersection ahead and sped towards Club 11. When he got to the door, he didn't need to ask. The waiter nodded and led him to the VIP area. John was well known around here, and even if Roman only came with him once, he was still on the list. The waiter brought Roman to the VIP section and went on to look for Daisy. The room was dark, with blue electronic laser lights flashing back and forth, and Daisy was happily dancing around on the dance floor. John was seated on the couch, grinning while Sarah was cheering on Daisy and her dance. No one noticed him coming in. Roman stood there in a daze. He was very surprised at Daisy's current state. He had to take it all in, thinking how courageous she had become now. She still couldn't let go of herself and act out like that. Roman didn't know whether he should be happy or cautioned. She looked like she was really happy at the moment. Roman hesitated for a second and did not go forward to interrupt her. He sat beside John, who was holding a whiskey bottle in his hand, and kept singing the obnoxious song that was playing in the background. Roman turned on the headlight on the wall, making the three of them look back and notice him. When Daisy saw him, she ran over to him and hugged him happily. "You're back. It doesn't matter. Looks like you were having a great time anyway," Roman said with a bit of sourness. Daisy didn't hear him and nodded. "Yes, I'm very happy. Come on." She dragged Roman to the dance floor. Roman said, "I don't dance, you can carry on." He didn't come to the club very often. It was too noisy for him, but was occasionally dragged by John. Daisy was slightly disappointed and said, "You don't dance. Even John joined me for some time. How come you don't?" John took a sip of whiskey and said with a smile, "Daisy, don't compare him to me. He has no clue how to let himself loose and have a good time." Roman glared at him, sat down, and had a drink himself. Daisy picked up a martini that had been sitting there so casually as if she had done it 100 times. Roman stared dumbfounded at Daisy drinking with his friend. He suddenly wanted to drag her home. He had been gone for a day, and his innocent and lovely girl seemed to be a different person. John, that bastard, had turned Nina into a nightclub regular, and now he dared do the same to his girlfriend. He snatched Daisy's martini and said sharply, "Who told you to come to the club and get wasted?" Daisy looked at John. Roman glanced at him coldly. "I'll talk to you later." He stood up and dragged Daisy to the exit, but Daisy, who had always been obedient, shook off his hand timidly and said, "I want to be here." Roman couldn't believe her. He was taken aback. "Are you sure you want to be here, Daisy Evans?" Daisy nodded. After all, it was John who had brought them here, seeing how depressed she had been after taking Roman's call. She was unable to shake off his and Caroline's image together, hanging out at the farmhouse. When John mentioned the club, she couldn't resist the temptation and had come here to discover the new adventure that now she was totally into. The alcohol and music took every restless thought away from her as she danced her troubles away. "Okay, then have fun." Roman took the jacket he had just taken off and left without saying another word. As soon as he left, Daisy sank to the ground and cried, stunned that he would leave her all alone. Sarah quickly hugged her. "Don't cry, love. The boss is probably in a bad mood. It's okay. He'll come back soon." John did not like what Roman had done to her and ran after him, telling Sarah to look after Daisy. John ran downstairs to catch up with Roman, and it seemed that he was going to leave. John grabbed him and shouted, "Have you lost your mind? Daisy is in there crying, and you are just going to leave her like that, all alone and miserable. Roman was stabbed in the heart. What else can she do other than cry all the time?" What's the matter with you? Where did that come from and you want to vent on her like that? John asked him. Roman shook his hand away and sneered. You still have the guts to tell me what's right after making her do all this? Why do you help her invite trouble? He already knew why Daisy became different from her usual self. She drank too much. He was angry that Daisy was drinking with other men, and even more upset that it was none other than John. What's wrong if she wants to drink and party once in a while? John yelled at him. She's an adult and you don't need to hover around her all the time. What's wrong with it? Everything. John, Roman said viciously and punched him. John was quick enough to dodge it, but staggered and fell to the ground. There were quite a few people around watching the drama unfold. John shouted at Roman with clenched fists. If you want to fight, then go on. Why stop at just a single punch? The two of them refused to let it go when Daisy and Sarah saw what was happening. Daisy didn't bother to cry and ran towards Roman. Sarah followed her. Daisy was good at sensing his emotions. Knowing that his anger had subsided, she lowered her head and said, I'll go back with you. As soon as he heard her say that, he didn't bother with John anymore and left with her. John stood by the side of the street, watching them drive away. Well, John, why don't you call and ask Susan to pick you up? Sarah said. John said angrily, I am not going home now. You drank a lot today. Will you be able to drive? Sarah said, I still have my car. I can drop you if you want. I said I am not leaving. John walked back into the club. John's face was even more frightening. Sarah shut her mouth and walked to her car to go home. John spent some time drinking his troubles away and then decided to go home. But instead of driving to his house, he didn't know how he ended up at his former secretary's house. As he stood there, his anger went bit by bit. It was strange how the thought of that girl had calmed him down, but soon the loneliness filled him up. It's ridiculous. How could he feel this way? Is it because of the alcohol? John slammed the cigarette on the ground, then crossed the road and entered the building. Before he could figure out his actions, he had already reached Nina's door and rang the doorbell. No one answered his call. John stood outside the door for a while, then slowly turned and went downstairs. It was like sleepwalking. He knew that Nina was no longer here. What was he looking for? He shook his head and then stopped a cab. When he reached Susan's house, he found that his wallet was gone, so he called her to come downstairs to pay for the cab. Susan came downstairs and saw the condition he was in, all wasted, and thanked the driver. She put John's arm on her shoulder and helped him up the stairs. When Daisy and Roman returned home, they had a lot on their plate to discuss. Roman had lost his temper and got angry at her again. She didn't know if he would start ignoring her. She should have listened to him. All he ever did was take care of her. She told him to come back, and he did. She should have acted with a bit more sense. Maybe the night would have ended up well. Seeing her look so timid and silent, Roman became a little annoyed. He didn't like her acting so afraid of him. He took her hands and said calmly, Come, sit over here. Daisy looked up at him, walked over slowly, and sat in front of him. Do you know that you acted very immature back at the club? I know, Daisy replied softly. I shouldn't have had so much to drink. I told you that John is not a good influence and you still chose to hang out with him. Roman was still angry when he mentioned John. He got Nina to be into all of that. She was a very bright girl and she did eventually learn her way back to life, but at one point it became very bad, almost borderline addiction. Do you want to be like her too? Daisy thought of how Nina had to finally leave and shook her head. I don't want to become like her. Roman asked, Will you go out with him after that? No, not anymore, I promise. The girl shook her head. Roman then pulled her into his arms. Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes at Daisy's hand and looked carefully. He was consumed with anger again. What happened to your arms? Daisy looked at what Roman was asking about, only to find her hands filled with bruises and nail marks. Her skin was pale, and the bruises were particularly eye-catching, making Roman's eyes blaze. He was never going to let it go. Who did it? Daisy had already gotten herself into a lot of trouble. She couldn't lie to Roman and dig a deeper hole for herself. So she chose to tell him, "It doesn't hurt at all. I didn't even notice I had them. It must have been when we were on the ride." Daisy looked at Roman, mustering a smile. Roman was holding his anger by a thread. It was John, wasn't it? She chose to remain quiet at that. There was no need to deny it anymore. Daisy hugged him and said, "I know I made a lot of wrong decisions today, but I promise you that I have learned my lesson. We are home now and we don't have to spend this time fighting with each other." Roman sighed and looked at her. "You are not even going to let me be angry with you. That's not fair, Miss Evans." Daisy shook her head and chuckled lightly. The next morning, John opened his eyes in a daze, feeling confused for a moment, as if he didn't know where he was. Rubbing his forehead, he looked around only to realize he was at Susan's place. He sat up wearing his coat and headed towards the door before he could come across his fiancée and get into an argument over last night. Mondays were always very busy for Sarah. Ella called her and said, "Sarah, the traffic police called just now saying that Mr. John's car was towed and he had gotten a ticket." Sarah was taken aback when she heard that. John drove away last night. How could his car get towed? "He hasn't arrived at the company yet and the traffic police said his phone isn't reachable," Ella said. "I also called him just now, but no one answered. What do I do now?" When Sarah heard this, she thought something must have happened to him last night. She asked again, "Where was John's car towed away?" Ella said, "It was on the 7th Avenue. Sarah felt that the street sounded a bit familiar. Wasn't that the road in front of Nina's house? What did John do there last night? She suddenly asked Ella, "Is there a more specific location?" "Yes, the photo was sent over." Ella smiled and said, "I will send it to you now." Sarah said yes, and soon the photos were sent. His cool red Bugatti was parked across the road from Nina's house. Sarah put her hand on her forehead, trying to think what this all was about. He drank too much and drove to his former secretary's house. John arrived at the company as usual, full of energy. He went back to his office first and listened to Ella talk about the tow truck. He let out a casual hum, and when he heard Ella reported the matter to Sarah, his expression turned furious. He turned around and went to Sarah's cabin. Seeing him coming in, Sarah was relieved, to say the least. She stood up and asked, "Mr. John, what's the matter?" "Change the secretary. This isn't going to work," John said. John looked at her and said, "She can't handle my affairs by herself, and she comes running to you for everything. How is she qualified to be a secretary?" Sarah said, "Ella couldn't find you and your phone was turned off. Don't make excuses for her. As a secretary, if the boss can't distinguish between official and private matters, she is in trouble." John's tone remained firm. Sarah said, "I have gone through all the senior secretaries in the company for you. If you want to change her, you can recruit them from outside. I'll call human resources to handle it right away. They will help you find a new one as soon as possible." John was silent for a while and said, "Then hurry up." John then asked Sarah, "Is your boss there?" "He is. Do you want to see him?" Sarah picked up the phone and said, "I'll let you know." Sarah hung up the phone and said to John, "The boss said to go in." John nodded and entered Roman's office without saying a word. They acted as if nothing had happened. John sat down on the chair as usual and said, "You didn't do anything to Daisy last night, did you?" Roman snorted coldly at him, mentioning Daisy as soon as he entered the door. He didn't bother to circle the topic. "What I do with Daisy is none of your business." "I hope you stay away from all this," Roman said. "It doesn't matter to me." John took out the cigarettes, threw one to Roman, and said, "She is your girl. What does it have to do with me? I look after her for you. Did she have a good time in the club?" John smiled. "I didn't realize that she can handle alcohol that well." Roman stared at him. "This time she begged for you, so I'll let it go. If it happens again, don't blame me for coming after you." After a pause, John said, "I didn't make her drink so much on purpose yesterday. She was not in a good mood. Sarah and I cheered her up for a long time, but she still looked upset. Let her have fun and relax once in a while. Her personality is actually quite lively, especially after a couple of drinks." "I saw how she behaves," Roman interrupted him. "Why was she in a bad mood? How would I know?" John thought for a while and said, "She was pretty happy at first, but after she called you, It was all gone. Sarah guessed that you guys must have fought. We didn't. Hearing what John said, Roman was a little surprised. Well, then she must be missing you. Roman took a puff of the cigarette and said flatly, I will take care of her from now on. Let me spare you the trouble. Seeing John come out with a calm face, Sarah boldly asked, John, why did you park your car in front of Nina's house last night? Nina's house? John frowned slightly as if puzzled. What would I be doing at her house? Besides, hasn't she moved away? That's right. I'm also surprised. When I saw the photo, I was taken aback. The place you parked your car is just across from Nina's house. Really? John bent down in front of the computer and looked at it carefully and then said, I drank too much last night, so I stopped the car on the side of the road and took a cab home. Look, I didn't know where I parked my car. He left the floor, not wanting to continue the topic. Daisy was someone who always minded her own business, but now she couldn't help but care about Caroline. Roman was also not in a good headspace recently. After hearing what Caroline had said last time, he asked someone to investigate the matter and came to know that the whole school knew about Daisy and Ethan. The two had their concerns, but they refused to talk about it, and the atmosphere at home changed subtly. Sarah saw that Daisy hadn't turned a page of her book for a long time and knew she was thinking hard about something. She shook her hand in front of Daisy. Hey, what are you thinking? You look so lost. No, it's nothing, Daisy replied. Sarah sat down, looked at her, and smiled. Little girl, is something on your mind? Tell me, maybe I can be of some help. She was very close to Sarah now, and they almost talked about everything. Sarah glanced at Roman's door, lowered her voice, and said, Is there any problem with the boss? I think you have been very quiet these days. Daisy sighed faintly. Maybe I'm overthinking all of it. Sarah pulled up a chair, sat beside her, and said earnestly, Whatever it is, when you get home, talk about it with your boyfriend. You cannot solve anything until you communicate with each other. Daisy nodded, and Sarah said again, You have to be stronger and take a stand for yourself. If you have an issue with him, tell him. If you don't discuss it in the first place, how will you ever solve it? You may think that your problems are silly, but if it is important enough to bother you, you should not try to brush it under the carpet. I don't want to start a fight, Daisy said. It's not a fight. Let him feel that you care about your relationship. Also, Sarah said, if he is any good at being a boyfriend, he has to find a way to solve the issue for you. Sarah said, you have to make him listen to you. Daisy stood up and went to his cabin to clear the air between them. Roman's heart sank. His girlfriend wanted to have a showdown with him. With a calm expression on his face, he asked lightly, What do you want to say? Daisy lowered her head at this moment and did not look at him. Her voice was very soft. From now on, you are only allowed to love me. You cannot be with Caroline. There will be only me in your heart. Daisy buried her head in his arms. Her voice was muffled. You don't hate me, do you? I hate it when you cry like this. Roman kissed her head lightly. I only love your smile. Daisy rubbed her face against his clothes, raised her head, and smiled at him. Roman was amused by her and pinched her nose. What is it with the crying and confessions? The next day, when Roman sat down in his office to work, he wanted some documents, but couldn't find them. He started going through various drawers and stacks to find it, but in vain. He did find something else, though. He found a tiny note stuck at the bottom of a drawer and an old photograph. The note read, Coffee today, with a tiny heart. And the photograph was of none other than Iris. She had passed him the note when they had been in college one day. She had wanted to share some stuff about class with him. He held the photograph in between two fingers, looking at it for a long time. What surprised him was the lack of emotion that he felt. It was the same photograph that had made him resolve to wait for a lifetime. It was the same face he used to dream of every night for the past decade, and yet it felt so long ago. He felt nothing for her anymore, and even if something was there, it was too dormant for him to notice. It felt as though he had loved her in some other life. In this life, his heart only belonged to Daisy. He was shocked at how alien he felt about his former self. Has he fallen so deeply for Daisy in less than a year? For the first few months, he felt guilty about liking Daisy. Then gradually he relaxed into the feeling, though he used to think of Iris very often. Over time, she started occupying less and less of his mind, and while looking at the photograph now, he realized he had been consumed with Daisy so much, and in trying to make things work with her and make her happy, Iris hadn't crossed his mind in months. He sat there thinking for a while, then slid the photograph back in its place. He opened pictures of Daisy on his phone. He scrolled through them for a very long time, completely forgetting the work he was doing and the document he had been searching for. When Sarah arrived at the office, she sorted out some documents and took them in for Roman to sign. She secretly observed her boss's face. She had given Daisy some advice about how to take their relationship forward yesterday. She didn't know if Daisy had listened to her, but judging from the look on Roman's face, she knew whatever trouble they were facing had been sorted out. His face was very calm, as usual, neither happy nor angry. Roman read the document and signed it, then raised his head to look at his secretary. "Where did you come up with that advice you gave to Daisy yesterday?" Sarah never thought that Daisy would let out her secret like that, and she was not prepared to face her boss. Being embarrassed like that, she wanted to dig a hole in the ground. "She came up with a silly explanation, sir. I was just talking to Daisy in general. Why are you so nervous?" Roman looked at her. "I just asked you, how did you come up with that advice?" "I read it in a psychology book," Sarah said, trying to save face. "Which book?" "It was an essay compilation on studies done on couples in love with each other," Sarah answered honestly. Roman frowned. He had guessed that she may have been in a relationship, but he was wrong. "Can you email me a PDF of that book you read?" "Yes, boss." Roman took a sip of water and asked her again, "Am I way too old to be with her? Is that why we constantly have issues?" "It doesn't matter what age you both are," Sarah said. "Everyone has troubles when it comes to love. Be careful of what you advise her from now on," Roman told her. "She was already under John's wild influence, and now I don't want you to join the band." "Boss, I would never mislead her into trouble," Sarah stated clearly. "Okay, you can leave now." Sarah turned around and left, happy to dodge the bullet. When Daisy came back from college, Sarah didn't talk a lot to her and kept minding her own business. But Daisy understood immediately what must have happened. She frowned and said, "He promised me that he won't be angry at you. Let me talk to him. Why does he always do this?" Sarah tried to stop her in a hurry, but she had already left to talk to her boss. Daisy pulled the door and barged in. She was a little angry and immediately yelled at Roman, "Why do you never keep your word? Will it always be like this? I make friends and you compromise them." Roman looked at the girl, not getting what she meant. "When did I go back on my words? You agreed not to be angry at Sarah for interfering in our matters, but you scolded her early in the morning. She was just trying to help me." Sarah was watching the door when she heard Daisy yelling at her boss. She shook her head in disbelief. She knew it was over for her. Her boss was going to fire her for causing him so much trouble. She kept thinking it was all over for her repeatedly in her mind. Suddenly, someone tapped her on the shoulder and she whipped her head to look at the intruder. John was taken aback by her. "What is it, Sarah? You want to switch your career to become a spy?" Sarah looked angrily at him. "John, you scared me to death. Can you keep your voice down? I am in the middle of something." "No, and what are you looking at again?" John asked curiously. "The two of them are making out or something?" Sarah looked at him in disbelief and asked, "John, did you come looking for the boss? What is happening in there?" John liked to argue with her. "If you want to know so bad, why don't you go in?" Sarah was worried that she would not have a chance to go in, so she could use John's help. She didn't bother to argue with him right now, so she opened the door for him. Seeing her become so polite, John looked at her suspiciously before walking in. Sarah followed closely behind him, following every step, trying not to let Roman see her. She kept looking at Daisy, signaling her to come out. Roman didn't raise his head to look at her, but said, "Sarah, is this something new you are trying to teach Daisy?" She immediately put her hands down and said, "No, boss." Sarah came out from behind John, but she was speechless. Who knew that Daisy had such a fiery temper? Sarah, don't be scared. Roman cannot scold you since you have done nothing wrong. Daisy comforted her with a smile. John kept looking at Sarah, and he laughed. Did I miss something good? Sarah didn't dare say anything in front of Roman, but she was pissed off at John for making her situation even worse. Hadn't she been embarrassed enough for one day? When was this torment going to end? Okay, for Daisy's sake, I won't say anything. Let's end the topic here, Roman said in a calm voice. Sarah was forgiven, so she hurriedly dragged Daisy outside. While walking, Daisy said to her, "Next time he gets angry at you, just come to me." Sarah didn't say anything, just kept dragging her away. John's muffled laugh came from behind, and Sarah could bet that the boss must have been angry again at John. Once they were out, Sarah immediately begged Daisy for mercy. "Please don't tell the boss what we discuss. Let's keep it between you and me." Daisy looked at her and said, "I promise I won't let him be mad at you again. It can't be like that." "If I do something wrong, I should be corrected," Sarah said. "You can improve by the scoldings, and this time it was my mistake. I shouldn't have given you ideas and forced you to follow it," Sarah said. "But it was very effective," Daisy said with a smile. "I wanted to thank you. After I cleared everything up with him, we were able to look past it. We are in a better place now." John came out and winked at Daisy. "Your boyfriend is calling you in." John waited for the door to close before he burst into laughter again. He sat down in front of Sarah and gave her a thumbs up. "You are amazing." John changed the subject. "Did Nina call you? She has gone off the grid and changed all her contacts. Do you have any clue?" Sarah said, "She didn't call me. Maybe she is too busy moving in and settling into a new life. I think she wants to forget about us." John flicked his fingers on the table. Sarah joked, "Why are you so sour about her? Do you miss her?" Sarah became suspicious. "Why don't you focus on Miss Gray and let Nina be on her own?" John didn't answer her, but instead asked if she wanted to join him to go to the casino this weekend. Sarah said, "Shouldn't you go with your fiancé?" John shook his head. "She doesn't like going out on the weekends, especially to casinos." "So do you want to come or not? Daisy and Roman are also going to be there. It will be fun." Sarah looked surprised. "Boss agreed to go out with you?" John laughed. "Yes, he did. He may not enjoy clubs, but casinos are very familiar to him. He often goes there for informal business meetings and stuff like that." Sarah nodded. "Fine, then. It's not like I have anything else planned out." The night's game was held at the plaza. John and Roman both had long-term private rooms there. John and the others played cards in the mahjong room inside, while Daisy and Sarah had a good time in the karaoke room. "So John is engaged now?" The girl keeping them company for the night said, "Seeing that he is so funny and charming, I wanted to introduce him to my younger sister. What a shame." John slapped the cards in his hand on the table. "Okay, gentlemen, let's begin the game for tonight." They finished their first round, and John, being himself, had sneaked his way to win the round. Roman shook his head, spread out his cards, and said, "If you keep doing this, I won't play anymore." John raised his voice triumphantly and called, "Sarah, let's count our share, shall we?" When Sarah heard this, she jumped on the spot, pulled Daisy along, and said, "Let's see how much we made in this round." Seeing Sarah bring Daisy in, John grabbed a few red notes for them. Sarah snatched them, but Daisy didn't pick them up, saying, "You just gave me a lot of money. Keep it for yourself. What if you lose later?" They both joined in for a round and then left to get some food. Sarah decided to familiarize Daisy with the famous barbecue. While waiting for the food, Daisy turned to Sarah. "This place is so good. How come I didn't know this city had such a good place to eat?" Sarah said, "Of course it's good. This is the best barbecue in the night market. I used to eat here all the time with Nina. When Nina was mentioned, she felt a little sad. That damn girl changed her number. I don't know if she is doing well or not." Before they could go on, their food had arrived. The barbecue was hot and spicy. Daisy started to dig in, but then thought about getting some more for the guys to eat. They picked up a bag of barbecue, and Daisy said, "I'll go ahead and give it to them." Sarah nodded as she held 2 beef skewers in her hand and followed her slowly. The people inside saw the food come and stopped playing cards to eat the barbecue. Roman always kept his distance from roadside stalls. If it weren't for the fact that Daisy had gotten the food, he wouldn't have even touched it. John looked at the barbecue and said to Sarah, "I have won you so much money, so won't I get a bigger share of the food?" Before Sarah could speak, Daisy said, "There is still a bag outside, I'll get it." Sarah shook her head helplessly at John's antics. Daisy brought in another bag of barbecue, but they had already started playing cards. Daisy said, "There is still some left. You guys should finish it," John said, distributing the cards. Sarah took the bag and pulled Daisy out. "Let's go out and enjoy it. Let them carry on with the game." Daisy went back out and told Sarah to come to the restroom with her. Sarah couldn't resist her, so she tagged along. When Daisy went in, she ran into Caroline in the corridor. She instinctively wanted to hide, but Caroline had already seen her and smiled at her. "Daisy, what a pleasant surprise. It looks like we keep running into each other. What are you doing here? We all came here to hang out. John and Roman are in the room playing cards, and I was looking around with Sarah. Every time Daisy saw Caroline, she felt a little uncomfortable, so she tried to get rid of her as soon as possible." "Really? Roman is here with you guys?" Caroline said. "Then I'll go and see him. It was nice to catch up with you." Daisy's heart was pounding hard. She had no choice but to tell her about Roman. Caroline had always been very warm to her. She took her hands and said in a sickly sweet tone, "Roman must be in need of some company while playing cards, and you must be leaving early. Let me just join them." Daisy felt weird when she heard her, but chose to not say anything. She smiled. "Sure. He is in there. You are such a sweet soul. I wish every girl was as nice as you." The more she praised Daisy, the more uncomfortable she felt. It was not the first time that she had this strange feeling. The last time she heard Caroline's voice on the phone while talking to Roman, she had felt the same. Daisy foolishly followed behind and wanted to go in together. Sarah grabbed her and asked, "Why did you bring her here?" Daisy was stunned for a moment, then whispered, "She kind of invited herself. I can't stop her from joining us now, can I?" She looked helpless. "She is Roman's to-be fiancé or something." Sarah said, "If she is his girlfriend, then what are you?" "Yes. What was she?" Daisy felt as if she had been stabbed in the heart. She saw that Caroline had already walked into the room. Sarah said anxiously, "I don't think the boss will lie to you. Maybe he broke up with her long ago." Daisy didn't understand why Sarah was so nervous about Caroline. "The boss is yours. You should defend your claim. You can't let others snatch him away, do you understand?" Sarah risked her life and came up with another idea. "You go in and sit with him, and if she dares to look at Roman, you should publicly show her that you are in a relationship with him and not her." "I'm not sure how I would do that." Daisy was scared to follow up on the idea. Sarah said, "If she dares to make any moves, you just lean in him and show him some affection. Do you hear me?" "There is no need for that." Daisy's heart started beating very fast. Sarah encouraged her, "Don't worry, I'm right here if you need some help." Caroline pushed open the door and entered the room. She greeted the people inside with a smile. "Roman, hey there. John, you are also here." John greeted her warmly. "Caroline, how come you are here? It's good to see you. You have been busy for a while. Do you want to join in for a round?" "No, I am good. I just got to know that you guys are here, so I stopped by to say hello." Roman glanced at her indifferently. "What are you doing here?" "I met Daisy outside and she said you are here, so I came in to meet you." Caroline walked around behind Roman and bent down to look at his cards. "How are you doing with those cards?" "It doesn't look that good." Just as Roman finished speaking, she touched a card and slapped it on the table. "Let's just get it over with." John looked at the card and laughed. "You are Roman's lucky star." "Really?" Caroline laughed and patted Roman's shoulder casually. "Did you hear him? I'm your lucky star." John glanced at both of them and then at Daisy, who was standing on the opposite side. He smiled, knowing what was going on, but remained silent. Daisy stood across from Roman, seeing clearly what happened just now. The strange feeling in her heart became more and more intense. She turned to look at Sarah. She gave her a firm look. This was way out of line. Daisy never initiated any intimate behaviors with Roman, that too in public. She gritted her teeth and went through it bravely. She did what Sarah had told her. She walked across the table and hugged Roman from the back without saying a word. The atmosphere in the room was a bit subtle, but with Daisy doing this, the faces of those watching the drama unfold became even more amused. John was surprised, to say the least. It must have taken a lot of courage for the timid Daisy to do this in front of Caroline. He glanced at Sarah. Needless to say, this must have been her brainchild. Roman was stunned for a moment, as if he couldn't believe it. He put his hands behind his back and patted Daisy. "What's the matter? Do you want to bail out for tonight?" Daisy's courage had completely disappeared. She didn't dare to look up at Caroline or even anyone else for that matter, so she just laid there still. Roman turned around and wanted to bring her to the front, but Daisy tightly wrapped her arms around his waist and did not let go of him. The room was surprisingly quiet. Only Roman's gentle voice coaxing Daisy was heard. "What's the matter? Are you feeling sick? Do you want to go home?" Daisy made up her mind to hold on to the end like this. She bravely took the first step, but never thought about how it would end. She just nodded her head meekly. That was all Roman needed to know before he stood up to leave. Roman then turned to everyone. "I'm sorry, we will be heading home now. Have a good night." Roman took Daisy's hand and said to John, "Remember to send Sarah back home safe. Don't worry about us. Have a great night," John teased him. Roman just smiled at Caroline and left with Daisy in his arms. When he had left, John called out to Caroline, "Caroline, there is a spot for one more person. Do you want to join us?" Caroline was slightly taken aback. She quickly waved her hands and smiled. "No, I still have friends over there waiting for me. You guys have fun." Roman put Daisy in the car, got in himself, and straightened her hair. "Tell me what's the matter," Daisy said softly. "I'm sorry." Roman asked, "Why are you apologizing? What did you do?" "I shouldn't have done that in front of Caroline." Daisy felt that he was still confused. "What did you do in front of her?" Roman asked her. Daisy's actions tonight were beyond his expectations. He wondered when Daisy got so brave. He has never made anything clear about Caroline, just hoping that Daisy would mind it one day and mention it to him. But till now, she had kept avoiding mentioning Caroline. Roman originally didn't intend to reveal the truth in front of Caroline so soon, worrying that she would tell his parents about it, but Daisy took the lead, and he wasn't able to stop her. Daisy squirmed in her seat. "I shouldn't have acted like a child." Roman laughed. "You just stood by me. That makes you a child. Who told you that?" "Sarah told me to stake my claim and I did it." Sarah had told her not to tell Roman about it, but what can she do now? "Don't worry. I promised you that I would not say anything to her." Roman lowered his head and kissed her face. "But why did she ask you to do this?" She said. Daisy said a little evasively, "I have to defend my rights." "What rights?" Roman pressed her again. He just wanted to force out her sincerity bit by bit. Daisy leaned against his face, panting slightly as her voice became softer. "You are mine. I can't let others take you away." Roman's heart felt like it would burst any moment from happiness. He held Daisy's face and kissed it, pouring all his emotions into it. His voice was muffled when he said, "Silly girl, I am yours and only yours. No one can take me away." Daisy was dazed by his kiss, but she distanced herself and asked rationally, "Is Caroline still your girlfriend?" "She has never been my girlfriend." Roman shut her up with his lips completely, not allowing her to speak again. Adam and Tony went on a dinner with John and Susan one evening. Tony and Susan knew each other, and John introduced her to Adam. "Miss Susan, looks like Mr. John got lucky to have you as his fiancée." Adam shook her hands and smiled at her. They talked for a while, and then Tony and Adam left. Susan looked at Adam's back and said, "Mr. Miller is not at all like what people think he must be. What do they think about Adam? That he is arrogant and conceited?" Susan said with a smile, "I think he is just another victim of rumors. He complimented you, so of course you would have a good impression of him." John curled his lips. "Hey, are you jealous?" Susan reached out to pinch John's face, but he turned away. Susan looked at him seriously. Are you jealous? I just said he is nicer than I thought he would be. John said, I don't pay much attention to Adam. Susan just smiled. You feel pretty good about yourself, don't you? Since you know him, why don't we plan another dinner with him? John took a sip of his wine. I don't know him that well, but I get along with Tony. Seeing that he was silent, Susan said, It's all right if we hang out with them, right? I am not sure about that. John was very straightforward. Our companies have always been at odds. I don't want Roman to misunderstand anything. Susan suggested they go to a nearby supermarket to get some groceries. John was familiar with such errands, pushing the shopping cart and following Susan around the store. John looked around the store when suddenly his eyes froze. Not far away, a woman was buying candied fruit. She looked very much like Nina. John looked at her for a long time but still couldn't be sure. The way she was dressed was very different from what Nina wore. Seeing John stop suddenly, Susan looked back and saw her fiancé staring at the beautiful woman. She got angry. What are you looking at? What? John looked over again, but the person was gone. Susan sighed and walked forward angrily. John looked around, but the woman had disappeared in thin air. Susan walked angrily for a while, seeing that he hadn't followed her. John was looking for someone, so she walked straight out of the store. John saw her leaving but didn't pay any attention as he continued to look for the woman he had just seen. John ran out of the supermarket and took his car out on the road. He looked for that woman on the sidewalk nearby but had no luck. He then parked the car on the side of the road and lit a cigarette. John was suddenly a little uneasy, as if something was wrong in his heart. He opened the window and popped out the cigarette butt. He took a deep breath, took out his phone, and dialed Dave's number. Hey, can you help me find someone? Dave laughed. If I'm not wrong, you must be looking for a woman. Tell me, who is she? You know Nina, John said. She said she left the city, but I think she is still here. Can you check for me? The sooner the better, Dave said. Hasn't she already resigned? Why are you looking for her? She took something very important from me. Dave said, Did she steal something important? Kind of, John said. How long will it take to find her? Can you do it by evening? Do you think I'm a magician? Dave said. At least give me 3 days. Okay, then 3 days. John's tone was pleading. I need to get it done, Dave. The next morning, Ella ran to Sarah to resign. Seeing the girl, Sarah could only try to convince her with words. Ella, Mr. John is very easy to get along with. It's just that he has been a little angry these days, so don't be so impatient. Ella pouted. Sarah, I'm not capable enough to be the secretary of the general manager. You should choose someone else. Ella. Sarah pushed Ella onto the chair and sat down. Look, I have sent several secretaries to Mr. John, and you are the only one who is still in office. But Mr. John doesn't like me, Ella said. When she was picked, she was full of joy and couldn't wait to start her new job. However, she had put in all of her efforts, but was still unable to handle the pressure. Sarah said, How could Mr. John not like you? Tell me, what happened today? I broke a cup. Ella said, I don't know whose cup that was. It has been on the cabinet since I came here. I thought it was of no use, so I threw it away this morning. After Mr. John came in, he asked me why the cup was not there. I said it was useless, so I threw it away. He immediately blew up and said, how could I throw things around without his consent? Sarah, I never dared to move his things, but this cup was placed in my office. He yelled at me for half an hour. Sarah was silent for a long time. She knew that the cup was Nina's because she didn't take it away. John was not someone who got angry over such matters. What was going on? Did he fight with his fiancée? Well, let me give you some advice. Sarah thought for a while and said to Ella, You do what I say, and if it doesn't work, I'll transfer you. What do you think? Ella hesitated for a moment but agreed. John was completely different from his usual amiable image. Back in the office, Ella handed him a document. Mr. John, I just received a fax from GK. Okay, keep it here, John replied lightly, walking to his cabin. Ella stopped him again. Mr. John, I have put the marketing report for this month on your desk. John paused, looked back at her, and said, Bring me a cup of coffee. This was the first time since Ella took office that John asked her to do something for him. She was overjoyed but tried her best to contain her excitement. After making the coffee, Ella took it to him, keeping in mind Sarah's words. She just wanted her to imitate Nina. She didn't want to, but there was no other way. Mr. John would only like it this way. After handing the coffee to John, she observed him closely. He leaned back in his chair, lowered his eyes, and looked very tired. Ella remembered Sarah's advice. Putting down the coffee, she walked gently behind John, raised her hand, and put it on John's shoulder. "Mr. John, are you tired? I'll press your shoulders for you." As soon as she touched him, John squeezed her hand hard. Ella let out a soft cry in pain. He pushed her away from him, turned around, and said with a menacing smile, "What are you trying to do here, Ella?" Ella was very disturbed. "I noticed that you are tired, so I wanted to massage your shoulders for you." John bent his lips. "Don't you know that it's very unprofessional to hit on your boss?" Being told such a thing to your face by a playboy, Ella wished to die. "Who told you to do this?" John said. No one said anything," she replied. John stared and the girl confessed, "Sarah told me to do it. She said that you need to be taken care of and wanted to help me do it." The corner of John's mouth curved again as he sneered. "Why are you listening to her?" John said, "I'll give you 5 minutes. Pack up your things and get out." As soon as the words fell out of his mouth, Ella ran out. John felt very angry, and he pushed open the door of the president's office. Sarah was shocked to see him and jumped up from the chair. "Mr. John." John didn't want to be polite to her and said, "Sarah, are you out of your mind? What were you trying to do by asking Ella to dress up like Nina? Why are you so unreasonable? She is a secretary, so she should do the job of a secretary. Why are you teaching her all this nonsense?" Sarah was shaken up by John's yelling, and she stood there dumbfounded, unable to speak a word. She never expected her plan to backfire so badly. John walked out of the office and went to a club. He sat there drinking and thinking about how annoyed he had felt at seeing Ella dressed as Nina. The only person he wanted to see dressed like Nina was Nina. And was Sarah losing her mind? Did she think he only kept Nina for her dressing sense and good coffee, and she was of no use otherwise? Right now, he almost missed Nina as a confidant, as the closest person he had. He talked to her all the time about all the things, and she listened and came up with the most witty and helpful insights into the situation. He felt very lonely, suddenly. Why did she leave? He still couldn't figure it out. Had he done something wrong? He and Nina had a few makeout sessions in the initial days. He liked that with her. He also liked sleeping with her, but that was purely physical, and she seemed to enjoy that too. But over time, it had become more friendly and verbally flirtatious. He had started treating her with more care, and maybe they started growing out of that initial attraction. Until that evening when Nina kissed him and freaked him out. Did his reaction offend her? He didn't think so. So where did he go wrong? The next day, John came in with Roman. Sarah didn't want to say a word to him. Roman glanced at Sarah and asked John, "What's going on?" John was still angry. "Ask your secretary." Sarah said, "I've told Ella to leave and you can find someone else who can manage things for you." "Okay, I see." John's phone rang before he could say anything else. He looked at it to see Dave calling and immediately answered, "Any news, my friend?" John's face instantly lit up. He hung up the phone and walked to the door. He turned back to Sarah and said, "I got angry at you for no reason at all. I hope you will let it go. I will make it up to you." Roman shook his head and said, "He's been having some troubles recently." "He is," Sarah said calmly. Roman said to her, "From now on, you can just take care of Daisy and ignore the rest. I'll have someone take care of it." Sarah was stunned for a moment, and Roman interrupted her. "Daisy doesn't understand anything, and she doesn't know who to go to when she has problems. It's okay if you help her." John drove through the streets and came to the address Dave had given him. John parked the car on the side of the road and looked around. He looked at the building numbers on the side of the house and searched for the said house. Just then he came across Nina sitting on the bench in the distance. John could hear his heart beat in his ears, but he didn't dare to take another step forward. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, and her curly hair in big waves hanging down was blown up gently by the wind. He also noticed the slight bulge in her belly. John stood by the tree, watching her quietly. What was the matter with her? Why did she resign suddenly and change all her contacts? All these questions flashed in John's mind, and he couldn't figure anything out. Nina got up after sitting for a while, and then walked slowly out of the park. John followed her secretly, watching her enter the second building as she went up the stairs. After waiting for a while, he saw the windows on the third floor lit up. John saw that all kinds of wires hung over there. Balconies had closed windows, while some had dried clothes. The place was dirty and messy, completely different from the apartment that Nina lived in before. John frowned. Was this the new life she wanted? Suddenly, the balcony door opened, and he saw Nina standing on the balcony for a while as she collected her clothes. Compared with the impatience he came in with, John drove away very slowly, thinking, what happened to her? Back at the company, John entered his office and saw a new secretary sitting outside. She stood up and introduced herself. John, my name is Gina, and I am the new secretary. John frowned. Is that the name Sarah told you to tell me? No, that's just my name, Gina said. He said, this name doesn't suit you. Let's call you Mary from now on. As long as she can keep the position of secretary to the general manager, she is ready to be called anything. Since Mary came, the general manager's office had been calm. Sarah took the time to ask Mary how it was going and was a little surprised when she found out about the name change. John's taste has become very thorough. Sarah was relieved that his mood was normal again. Daisy gently opened the door and called, Hey, Sarah, are you busy? Daisy, you came in early today. Sarah waved at her. Come in, I bought you some books. See if you like them. Daisy walked in and looked at them. I like them. I'll show them to Roman. Seeing Daisy come in, Roman couldn't help but smile. How was your college today? It was the same old routine. Daisy ran over to show him the book. Sarah bought me these books, Daisy said. How about I read you a story? Okay, you can read it. He moved back so that Daisy could lean on him comfortably. Daisy's voice gradually dropped, and she finally stopped when she saw him fall asleep on his chair. Daisy wanted to stand up, but as soon as she moved, the hand on her waist tightened. Roman grumbled, Where are you going? You are so sleepy. I'll sit on the couch, Daisy said softly. Don't go. Stay with me. Sarah sat outside for a long time, but she didn't see Daisy come out. She went in to check and saw them asleep on the chair together. John pushed the door open and was about to say something to Sarah when she covered his mouth and said softly, Don't shout. They are sleeping inside. John's eyes widened, but Sarah slapped him. John, stop being so nasty. They are just taking a nap, okay? Before he could say anything, she again asked, John, is Mary okay? John nodded. She is better than the previous ones. None of those outspoken ones were good. When Nina came to work on her first day, I just told her to focus on her work and leave everything else alone. John changed the subject. Did your boss tell you that it's Daisy's birthday next month and he wants to hold a ball for her? I have been contacting venues for the past 2 days, but I haven't found a good one yet. They are either too small or too overbooked. Sarah nodded. All the good venues are booked half a year in advance. Okay, leave the venue to me, John said. I'll figure out a way. John turned to her and said, About Nina, did she call you yet? No, Sarah said, full of resentment. It's as if she has disappeared from the face of the earth. It's been so long and I can't find her. She, John asked slowly, does she have a boyfriend? Not that I know of, Sarah said. She didn't have one when she left. Was she facing any kind of financial issues? John asked again, like, did she have some mortgage or student loan, something like that? Nina was very good with her finances. She earned well, and as far as I know, she didn't have any loans to be paid. But she left so suddenly, John said. Don't you find it strange? John was silent for a while and said hesitantly, There were rumors in the company, did you hear it? They say that Nina left because of me getting engaged. Sarah laughed. No way, John. Do you believe that kind of crap? Didn't you just say that Nina was not interested in you? You should have heard what she said about you. What did she say about me? John became interested. Forget it. I can't remember clearly, and besides, we have a lot to do. John insisted. Think about it. What did she say about me? Sarah had to think carefully for a while and then said, Nina said you are too careless and have no sense of responsibility, and that whoever will fall in love with you would be very unlucky. She said that? John smiled slightly, looking a little happy. Those were her exact words. Sarah suddenly became strange. John, you don't think that Nina left because she fell in love with you, do you? Isn't that possible? John raised his eyebrows. I'm a charmer. It's normal for girls to fall in love with me. Sarah curled her lips disapprovingly. I don't know about others, but Nina can never. Besides, why are you still thinking about Nina now? You have Miss Susan. Sarah glanced at him and said, John, you are in a good mood recently. Can I know if there is anything in particular? John told her, you should not bring negative energy to the work. Just doing that, my friend. John was about to speak when the door opened and Daisy came out. John smirked at her. Are you tired, my lady, from all the sleeping you have been doing? Daisy never understood his words and said, We didn't sleep a lot. John left her and went straight in. Roman was arranging the documents. John walked over to sit on the chair and said, You're going to hold a dance for Daisy, are you sure of it? Of course, I'll tell you when it's decided, Roman said. John said, If we have to send out invitations, there must be a host. It can't be Daisy herself. Who will be hosting the ball? I will be doing it for her, of course. Put my name on the invites. Put your name on it? John said. Maybe you should think about it. If you are the host, your relationship with Daisy will be out in the open from then on. Forget others. How will you explain it to your parents? That you fall in love with your employee who goes to college. Your mother will be so angry, not to forget the mess you will be making with Caroline. Roman didn't say anything after hearing that for a while. Things can always be resolved. I have already decided about throwing her a ball, so I won't change my mind. John said, I know you want Daisy to have an unforgettable birthday. If you want to have a grand and beautiful birthday, you can't hide it from others, but the problem is right in front of you. You can't ignore it. Roman, I don't want you to hold a ball, Daisy said as she walked in quietly from the door. Daisy walked a few steps and said, Really, it doesn't matter. I do not enjoy parties anyway. Roman knew that Daisy had heard John, so he stood up and went up to hold Daisy's hand. Let's go home. As Roman dragged Daisy towards the door, she looked back and said, But John is still here. He has some things to do. Let him be. John called to their backs. Roman, you are leaving early again. Don't you think you should lead by example? How will other employees take it? Roman led Daisy out of the door without bothering to answer his friend. John shook his head helplessly, going back to the arrangements he had to make for this party. Roman took Daisy down the elevator and he asked, If you are not in a mood to make dinner, let's go to the takeaway place you love. Daisy thought for a while. Grilled fish. Let's eat grilled fish, shall we? How could he say no when she looked at him like that? He pinched the girl's face dotingly and said, Okay, grilled fish it is then. God knows how much he avoided that odd-smelling thing, but nothing could be done now that she wanted to have it. While waiting for the food, Daisy brought up the topic of his discussion with John. As I was saying before you dragged me down here, I am not at all interested in having a party for my birthday. Why can't we just have a simple dinner at our house? All I want is to spend some time with you. Maybe we could also invite John and Sarah. What do you think? Don't worry about what John was blabbering. I will make sure everything is taken care of. You should just focus on having a good time and a memorable birthday. But, Daisy bit her lips, what about your parents and everyone else? Won't they find out about us? We can't do this, Roman. I am freaking out. The two of them never brought up this topic until now. They couldn't brush it anymore. They needed to figure out how they would deal with everyone. Roman did not want her to worry about it, so he casually said, It's okay. They're not in the city anyway. I don't think they would even know about it. I don't like these galas, Roman. I will be anxious all night. What is the point of doing all of this? I don't see it. You don't need to be scared. I will be there all night with you. I am sure you are going to enjoy it. Didn't you tell me that you never had a birthday party for yourself? How can you know that you won't end up liking it? Daisy saw how persistent he was and decided to give it a chance. It is very unlikely, but if you insist so much, promise me you won't invite a lot of people. Roman smiled and nodded. The hot grilled fish was brought in and Daisy couldn't wait to dig in. She picked up a piece and put it on Roman's plate. Eat it while it's hot. You will love it. Roman smiled and took a bite. It was spicy and had an umami taste. He still enjoyed it. They got done with food and went on to take a stroll around the city. The buildings across the street were a sight to hold on to. Roman asked her, "Do you like the view?" Daisy nodded. "It's very dreamy. Looks like it's straight out of a movie. Have you ever seen the fireworks they have every New Year's Eve?" Roman let go of her hand and hugged her. Her body leaning against his made him feel at ease. "I have watched some videos of it on Instagram," Daisy said. "This time maybe we could see it together. I love watching it." Roman said, "When it comes, I'll make sure to watch it with you, okay?" "Well," Daisy leaned in his arms as she looked up at the sky and said, "I always celebrated New Year's alone. This year, I finally have someone to keep me company. You have no idea how happy that makes me." Roman sensed her sadness and tightened his grip. "Seems like you are stuck with me for life, my lady. I am never leaving you alone." Daisy felt her heart melt and stared at him with so much love. Every time Roman made such a promise, she couldn't be more grateful for finding someone like him in life. Very happy, but she didn't have the extravagant hope in her heart that this would happen. She never took the idea of love and marriage seriously, but now all she ever did was hope to live a peaceful life with Roman. The night wind picked up, blowing coolly over them. Daisy's nose itched and she couldn't help sneezing. "Are you cold?" Roman touched her hands only to find them freezing. Roman grabbed them and put them in his pocket. "Stop being careless about yourself again. When will you learn to take care of your health?" Roman said as he rubbed her palms. Daisy said with a small frown, "Why are you being so rude? You know how I always forget to bring my jacket. It's okay, don't look so upset." Roman took Daisy's hand as he bent down to kiss her nose and said in a low voice, "Daisy, I wanted to ask you something." "What is it?" Daisy said as she tried to act casual, even though it felt as if her face was on fire. "You?" Roman paused for a moment, his lips hovering over hers. "You love me, right?" "If it was not evident till now, then yes, I do love you," Daisy said, looking into his eyes, trying to make some space between them. Then, the man's voice hesitated. "What about Ethan? I mean, I am not trying to imply anything, but I do want to know what he is to you." "I like Ethan," Daisy said, not getting his intent. She didn't expect him to bring her friend up in this conversation. Roman suddenly took a step back and looked at her. "No." Seeing that he misunderstood her, Daisy put out anxiously, "I just treat him as a friend, and I like him just like Emily or Mia. It doesn't mean I am in love with him or something. I don't even get why you keep asking me about him." "Didn't you say that it was okay if I made him my friend?" Roman found himself unable to restrain his excitement for a while. "Really? That's it? Nothing more to it?" "Yes, I won't lie to you. Did you expect me to say that he is my secret love interest or anything like that?" The girl reached out and hugged him. "I only love you, Mr. Spencer." Roman felt her honesty and couldn't be more glad to be the man she loved. As long as it didn't rain, Nina went out for a walk every day after dinner. She walked from her home to the park 2 blocks away and spent some time being close to nature. It gave her some peace as she tried to make sense of the world around her. These days, she had a feeling that someone was following her. Even today, as she went on her daily stroll, she turned around several times to see if she noticed some familiar figure. She didn't even see a shadow lurking around. Maybe she had started hallucinating or gone insane. She couldn't figure it out. Tonight, she was sure that she was being followed. She heard the footsteps behind her, so she ditched her usual route and instead went around the block. Just as she felt a hand on her back, she turned around and confronted her stalker with her pepper spray. The man screamed as he covered his eyes. Nina was stunned. Why did this voice sound so familiar? For some reason, Nina's heart sank and she ran forward towards the park. The man saw her running and went ahead to stop her. The man walked over slowly with a nervous expression on his face as he said, "Hey there, Nina. Long time no see. Thanks for spraying me with whatever devil's crap you have. What's life without having a girl attack you with pepper spray, right?" Nina slowly raised her head, revealing a smile as she heard John's voice. After taking a moment, she calmly faced him. "Hey, John. What a coincidence. What are you doing here? Sorry for that, by the way." John stopped and looked at her and said, "You know it's not a coincidence. Didn't you just spray me thinking I am some stalker coming after you every time you go for a walk?" Nina said in surprise. "I thought you were a thief. I'm so sorry. Does it hurt a lot?" "Why do you even have that thing?" John said. "My eyes still hurt and I can barely see you in the dark." Nina walked over to look at his eyes, and they were indeed red and looked a bit scary. Nina took a step back only for her to be held down by John. "You still want to leave? What are you running away from?" John's voice was very calm. "What will I be running away from? What kind of question is that? Also, can you please just leave my hand?" "Why did you run?" John asked her in a serious voice. "What are you even saying?" Nina said, "I thought you were a stalker. I sprayed you, but you still chased me. What would I have done? I'm asking why you resigned from the company. Why did you move up here when you said you were leaving the city? You even changed your number? Can't you even talk to me?" Nina opened her mouth to say something, but John interrupted her again. "Don't say that you just wanted to change your life. Is this the life you want to live? Just sitting around and doing nothing every day, only to come out for a walk after dinner? Nina, you tell me, what the hell are you doing? John, are you stalking me now? What is wrong with you?" Nina became a little annoyed. "What exactly do you want from me? Don't change the subject." John pulled her closer and said in a rough voice, "Answer my question first." Nina almost bumped into John's arms and stretched out her hands to keep a safe distance from him. Nina didn't make a sound, just stared at him. She said angrily, "Don't worry about me. If I don't care, then who will? Why do you care about me?" "Because I'm your boss. I have known you for so long, of course I will care," John said. "Not anymore. Not. Now we're just acquaintances." Nina sneered. "Please show me some respect and let go of my hand. I have to get back to my house." John smiled. "Just acquaintances, right? No wonder you want to disappear. You changed your number and didn't even contact Sarah. Do you want to get rid of all of us? I didn't expect you to be such a terrible friend." Nina laughed. "John, just forget it." John stared at her. "Nina, you have changed. Except for your sharp tongue, everything else is gone now. You are wrong, John. This is the real me." Nina suddenly smiled. "I look different to you because I don't live to please you anymore. I don't wear the clothes you like and behave according to you. To be honest, I'm bored and I don't want to pretend anymore. That was also why I quit. You lied." John glared at her. "I didn't lie to you." Nina stared back at him without showing her tears, but what came after shook her core. John was kissing her, holding the back of her head forcefully. She pushed him away and stood in front of him dumbfounded. John stood there motionless with a dazed look on his face. "John!" Nina yelled at him. "Are you crazy? Just get out of here. Get lost right now." Nina became more and more angry as she yelled at him, her chest heaving violently. "I'm sorry, Nina," the man finally spoke after a long while. His voice was bitter and stringent. "I probably lost my head and didn't know what I was doing. I'm so sorry." Nina slowly calmed down. Her voice softened. "You should go. Just pretend that tonight never happened. In the future, just pretend that you don't know me." John lowered his head and said with a very frustrated expression, "Why do you hate me so much? I always thought that after 5 years of being together, we would be good friends." "I used to be your friend, but it's all gone now," Nina said flatly. "You just lost the respect I had for you." John sighed, turned around slowly, then looked back at her. "You didn't resign because of me, did you?" Nina didn't speak, just looked at him coldly. John paused for a moment, then said, "You resigned because you hated me, right?" Nina smiled slightly. "It's rare for you to be so thoughtful like this. I guess I should consider it an improvement." Nina said, "I hate myself. I hate that I have changed myself into something I don't like in order to cater to you. Why didn't you tell me if you didn't like it?" For that job, Nina's tone became a little more relaxed. The secretary of the general manager, the salary and benefits are good. I struggled for a long time before deciding to leave. So that's how it is then. John nodded. You've been trying to do things my way all this time and I didn't even know about it. Now that you do know, can you go? Without saying a word, he turned around and left. Nina stood there as she felt a sense of despair. John drove around in the street with the windows open, the cold wind blowing on his face. His hands on the steering wheel were shaking. Everything turned out to be so messy and complicated. He parked the car on the side of the road and entered the bar. He sat at the counter and made a phone call. Tony, come to Denny's for a drink with me. Tony was hanging out with some of his friends as he happily said on the phone, Sounds fun, man. I can even introduce you to some people to keep you company. Be there in 10. Tony walked in to sit beside John as he said, What's the matter with you today? Who rejected your sorry ass to make you sulk so much? Do tell. Turning towards John in his seat, he saw him playing with a glass of whiskey in his hand. Tony walked over and patted John's shoulder. What has happened to you? You look very restless. Did you get into a fight with your fiancé? John shook his head and turned to the bartender. Get him a drink. What would you like to have? Your usual gin martini? He didn't need to say more as the bartender pushed the cocktail in front of Tony. It looks like you've been dealing with a lot lately. You don't even come to hang out anymore. If you are having any issues, you need to tell me. I can't help you without it, John said lazily. I've changed my ways now. So don't expect me to be the same guy hanging out with chicks and getting wasted all the time, okay? Pull yourself together, John. You don't look very good. Definitely a changed guy to me. Tony squinted at him. I'm used to seeing you live your life and have a great time doing it. John smiled, took a sip of his drink, and said, Tony, I am telling you the truth. I don't want to go back to being my previous self anymore. I am so sick of it. Really? Tony looked at him suspiciously. With his keen eyes, he could tell that John was a little restless from a while ago, and his anger didn't let him think straight. Really? John said lightly. Tony said, I am glad you are doing this for your fiancée. I never thought she had it in her to change your ways, but look at you gearing up for a family life. I am not going to drag you down to this lifestyle again. I am not doing this for her. I have my reasons, John replied. If not for her, then what made you do this? Tony asked strangely. Don't tell me you fell in love with some other girl. Is it a fling or are you messing up a big time? Why didn't I hear you mention it? You just got engaged and now getting involved in some other thing. Don't you think it's way too soon? John smiled wryly and pushed the empty glass to the bartender. I will have another round. Tony asked the bartender, How many drinks has he had tonight? 3 glasses, sir, the bartender replied while looking at Tony. Tony, do you think I'm a bad guy? The kind people want to stay away from? John looked at him with bloodshot eyes. Only then did Tony realize that there was something seriously wrong with him, so he moved closer to him and asked, What's wrong with your eyes? It looks like you've been crying. Is it just alcohol or did you smoke some shit? John rubbed his eyes with his hands and smiled bitterly. I was sprayed with pepper water. Tony didn't say anything for a moment. Pepper water? How did it get into the eyes? Did someone use pepper spray on you? John looked at him. I hate to say it, but man, it hurts like a bitch. Tony was dumbfounded now. Pepper spray? Isn't that what girls used for protection from the muggers on the street? John didn't go chasing after girls. He just needed to give them a look, and the girls would rush into his arms. Who would dare to spray him? After a while, Tony laughed loudly. Hey, tell me, what kind of a crazy woman is she? Don't call her crazy. John drank the brown concoction in one go. When you meet her someday, you'll see that she is one of a kind. The more Tony listened to him, the more he felt something was wrong. He asked him, Who? Who will I meet? Can you not go around in circles and tell me what is happening over here? John just smiled and kept smiling. Tony took his drink and then asked, Who is that woman? She must not be any ordinary person since she can make you act like this. Seeing that the bartender had stopped serving him, John banged his hand on the countertop. "Give me another one." The bartender didn't dare to offend him, so he could only look at Tony, who said in a calm voice, "If you drink any more, you'll be wasted. You don't want to end up passing out here, do you?" John said, "It's better to be wasted. It's not like I can't go home drunk." Tony tried to reason with him. "Don't drink. I am pretty sure your fiancé would not be thrilled to see you in this state." "I don't give a damn if she's happy or not." John pulled out of his seat forcefully. "Don't give him any more drinks. Have some water, John. You are out of your mind right now," Tony shouted. He grabbed John's arm. "If you don't want to end up on the front page of those gossip magazines tomorrow, please listen to me. Stop acting so crazy." John sat down on the stool and murmured, "You said I am crazy. That means what she said is true. No wonder she hates me so much. Do you want to get rid of me too?" Seeing him in this state, Tony couldn't bear it anymore, so he shook him up and said, "I don't want to get away from you, and no one hates you. Why would you even think that? You are a good friend, John." "It's a lie for sure," John said in a low voice, stood up and walked out of the bar. Tony hurriedly supported him and said while walking, "I didn't lie to you, really. If you weren't a great guy, why would I be friends with you?" John still shook his head. "But she hates me, and she said that I am perverted and crazy." He hugged Tony, but his voice could not hide his sadness. "She hates me so much. What should I do? I'm sick of everything." After finally passing out on the sidewalk, Tony made John lie down in the back of the car as he drove away to his house. When he dropped John home, Susan answered the door. She helped Tony to bring John in. When he left, Susan turned to John and couldn't contain her anger seeing his state. She sat on the sofa and said angrily, "Do you hate me? Why are you so drunk again? You are nowhere to be found during the day, and then you show up in the middle of the night all drunk and wasted." John looked at her with half-opened eyes. "Are you disappointed with me too? Do I also make you sad?" Susan was getting angry and said repeatedly, "I hate it. I can't take it anymore. I am tired of you and your ways." "Very well then." John sat up slowly on the sofa. "Since you are so fed up with me, why don't you just leave? Leave this engagement and go live your life without me in it." He then stood up and left to pass out in his bed while Susan sat there, stunned at his behavior. When John opened his eyes the next morning, Susan was sitting on the chair near the dresser with a blank expression. She noticed him get up and stared at him. John, who didn't expect Susan to still be here, stroked his forehead, which felt like it was about to split. He then asked her, "What time is it?" 9 o'clock. He felt a little tired, so he leaned back on the headrest and asked, "Why are you still here? Don't you have to go to work today? I wanted to wait for you to wake up. Why were you waiting for me?" John thumped his forehead, frowning in pain. "What do you want?" "I want to ask you if you were serious about what you said last night." Susan looked directly at him. "What?" John asked absent-mindedly with his eyes closed. "You said that we should break up, and that I should leave this engagement." John opened his eyes suddenly and realized what he had said. He sat up straight. "I said we should break up? Are you sure I said that?" Susan nodded. John just laughed. "You saw how wasted I was last night, didn't you?" "You can't possibly take my words seriously, Susan. Didn't you think that drunken words are sober thoughts?" "At least that's what I know," Susan said, "and you expressed your feelings very clearly." John responded calmly, "I wasn't talking about breaking up. I just had a bad day and took my anger out on you." Susan became angry at once and rushed over to him, shouting hoarsely, "You mentioned her name in your sleep. That bitch of a secretary of yours. You took her name all night. I should have seen it coming. Which boss would let his secretary be so involved in personal affairs? I am so stupid. You two deceived everyone. I feel disgusted to even think about it." Susan had a mature, stable, and successful boyfriend whom she was going to marry, but John got in the way. She became obsessed with him, so she left her boyfriend and got into a relationship with John. But now all her plans were completely messed up. The relationship that she had worked so hard to maintain was gone, and her dream of marrying into a wealthy family was shattered. Susan just felt disheartened and hopeless. Seeing that she had calmed down a bit, John got up and sat on the sofa on the other side. "This time, I'm really sorry. Just let me make it up to you. Anything you want, just say it, and I will make sure that you have it. To be honest, that's what I like about you. You never hide what you want, and you are not like those women who want me for my money." Even after hearing him out, Susan looked at him and thought about giving him one more chance. But then she remembered everything she went through last night and decided that it was time to put an end to this disaster. She stood up. "You don't love me, John, and I can't pretend otherwise, not anymore. I will be moving out soon. Have a good life." She then hugged him and left. John stood there for a moment while she left, but then decided not to think about it anymore. He took a shower and then went back to bed, feeling a little sick. After sleeping for some time, his phone rang. He reached for the phone and said, "I don't feel very well. I don't think I can make it to the office today." Then he hung up and passed out completely. Roman immediately asked Sarah to send someone to check up on John when he hung up on him. He sounded unwell, and Roman got worried about him. Sarah didn't have anyone available, so she went to see John. When she reached his house, she saw how pale and tired he looked. She hurriedly called for a doctor to check up on him. He did a quick checkup and told her to keep an eye on him and report it if his fever got worse during the day. Sarah finally breathed a sigh of relief, and she called Roman to report the situation. Roman instructed her to stay at his house until John's fever completely subsided. At almost 6 o'clock in the evening, John's fever finally subsided, and Sarah heard from the doctor that he probably had caught the flu. Sarah heard John whispering something in his half-conscious state, and she came next to him to listen carefully. John kept saying something, a word, but was it Nina or something else? She couldn't make out.